Retailers continue to feel the squeeze between rising acquisition costs, exploding fulfillment and omnichannel costs, and a looming recession. In this session, we will discuss the operating frameworks and efficiency gains that can help retailers prepare for continued market volatility. Specifically, we'll learn how Vera Bradley deals with these pressures by taking a full funnel view of customer lifetime value to unlock growth in this environment. I'm excited to introduce our speakers, Indy Guha, the CMO and Alliances Leader at Signified, and Darren Hull, the President of Vera Bradley.
These are very comfy chairs. Might have to hang out here for a bit.
I know. Well, first off, thank you everybody for joining us on this track. We know you have a choice of tracks, and we appreciate your spending your time with us.
Yeah, absolutely. But this is not going to be an uplifting conversation. We're going to keep it real. I'm just kidding. I think a lot of the topics for today were teed up by Stephanie, and we've had a great conversation, Darren and I, on some of the perspectives we want to tap into from the Vera Bradley journey, and hopefully those are useful for the group. I will say, with the mid-afternoon slump, and even if you did get that extra cup of coffee, we encourage you all to ask questions as we go. I don't think we have somebody to carry a mic, so put your hands up. I'll keep an eye out, and we'll repeat the question.
It's Midtown. You can just yell it out, and we'll repeat it.
Yeah. Don't throw things at us, but we will take questions. Awesome. So why don't we get rolling?
Sure.
Darren, when we were thinking about what we wanted to talk about today, I think a overarching theme was this idea that the last 2 years were crazy in one direction, growth, a lot of tailwind in digital channels, and it feels like we're now heading a little bit in the opposite direction. A lot of market volatility, households feeling kind of negative wealth effects with the market correction. And so, as somebody leading a iconic brand, a large e-commerce organization, what are you looking at internally? What are some of the economic indicators or other North Stars you can share with the audience as they think about their businesses?
Yeah, I think Indy mentioned we look at all the common things. So consumer confidence, which is at a decade's low. Inflation, CPI is at a 40-year high. A lot of kind of really tough information. One of the things we stay very close to, we have a VIP customer group that we engage with a lot. We also have a fan-run Facebook group that we engage with quite a bit as well. And what we've seen is no different than COVID, where you had a lot of geographical differences. Right now, we're seeing a lot of income differences. So for us, we can argue about whether we're in a recession or not. But what I would say from what I see and what we've been pretty open with Wall Street about is that customer who has a household income under $55,000, they're in a recession already. They're feeling that pressure of the higher energy, the higher food prices, these sorts of things. So I think it's really important. Why I bring up the engaging with your customer is making sure it's not just engaging with customers, but engaging across a wide range of economic positions so you can get an understanding of what people are doing. For anybody who hasn't listened to like Walmart or Target's earnings calls, some really big points of how kind of there's some bifurcated spending habits. So we look at those pieces. I think as we come to the journey, it's very easy over the last 2 years where it's hard not to grow when stores get closed. So there's the obvious ones of traffic, conversion, cart abandonment, obviously revenue. But now, as growth becomes more difficult, so depending on the source you look at, e-commerce contracted for the first time that I can remember since 2008. Now you need to get to the finer steps and be more methodical about what you're looking at inside the larger funnel. So optimization isn't just for the front end, it's how are you working through that purchase path.
So maybe to just double click on that a little bit, as you think about the considered purchase mindset, right? We are moving from a period of a lot more impulse buys, some government stimulus money helping with that impulse buy tailwind, to a very thoughtful purchase journey and people being really intentional about where they want to spend their money. what are some of the indicators you look at that sort of manifest that behavior? Or if you wanted to make it tactically applicable for the group, what should they be looking at?
So I think the big thing is to take a step back and understand what recessions do. So sometimes it's like get back to basics. Recessions have a tendency to remove inefficiencies from the market. So how do you remove the inefficiencies first? And I think one of the big things is if you look at the overall journey, it used to be like, well, is my product good? And am I getting an acceptable conversion rate? Now you have to look at let's take something like the consumer credit. Like something as simple as consumer credit and whether somebody has good consumer credit or not, that's going to affect your payment methods. It's going to affect whether you run through fraud filters. It's shipping costs are jumping really high up the list. I think everybody in the room has probably had to deal with surcharges on all that. So it's been getting more expensive and more expensive. One of the things we've seen is while we're still seeing pretty robust buying from higher income brackets, we're seeing return rates go up from that group. So just little things where you're seeing consideration in that purchase, pull that apart and start looking at it more closely. So we've talked about new metrics of the dollar per cart created or something like that, so you can have a way to look at what's the arc of those carts over time.
A quick aside on the demand continues for higher income demographics. Certainly for anybody who flew here for this conference, airports are a zoo. Obviously, Vera Bradley sells a lot of luggage. Just curious how you're seeing kind of that travel season impact your business, and I guess whether there's an opportunity in the room for travel adjacent categories while the travel backlog of the last 2 years washes through.
Yeah, I think from a macro perspective, there was good demand in travel. So we've made the comment that we're above pre-pandemic levels for travel. So that's a good thing. What I would say is inside of that, if you dig down deeper, there's a lot more demand on, say, domestic travel. So items that would go in the car instead of the overhead bin. So I think people are still trying to figure out, is it a 4-day weekend where they drive somewhere versus a week-long trip where they drive somewhere? And that's the interesting thing. Customers are changing very, very, very quickly. So even data, if you look back to last year's data, is very different than what people have seen in May or even June, for that matter.
So Vera Bradley North Face tent collab is imminent?
We just launched a Coleman collaboration in Target for tents and camp chairs. Yeah.
I was like, I just saw them at Target.
Yes, perfect.
I didn't even know that happened.
So
glad
it's all very organic. We're working with it today. We know we're after lunch and things like this, so we're trying to bring it up.
Awesome. A reminder, if you guys have questions, please jump in as we go here. So we talked a lot about instrumenting kind of your customer journey to understand that considered purchase path, but data is only as good as the org and the people who can act upon the data. And so maybe talk a little bit about how you've designed the e-commerce org at Vera Bradley for that understanding of the shopper journey.
Yep. I'm going to trail off something Charlie said. I think it's organizing for problem solving. I think if there's anything, when you end up in a difficult time period, we're all high-end problem solvers. So the first thing I would say is make sure you understand whose job it is to fix the problem. So we're talking about things that cross different functions and different departments. So historically, you may have looked at, you look at your buying funnels and you try to figure out, again, am I within acceptable ranges of my KPIs that I'm looking for? As things become more difficult, you have to pull those pieces apart, and it becomes cross-departmental, and you have linkages. If you're having challenges with, under 55 household income, do you have enough entry-level product that you're showing in these journeys, which may not naturally just optimize up to the top if you're using tools for those recommendations? Do you know who owns looking for vulnerabilities I tend to divide it up into the moment that gets somebody to put something in the cart and the moment that somebody hits checkout and tries to complete that transaction. Probably better to have two different people. Doesn't have to be the president of the brand, but you should know who is it that I'm going to go talk to if there are issues that we need to come up with. And keep things simple. I don't know how many people were in the job, were in an e-commerce job back in like 2000, 2001. Anybody remember that? Yeah, those were the good days, right? Like you'd send an email. This was before social media was big. So you'd send an email and half of them would bounce back, right? Because your friends were all losing jobs. It's a very difficult time for e-commerce. And in 2008, maybe more hands, right? Wow, all right. I'm having an old moment. So at our office, Halloween is a really big deal, and we went as all the characters from Gilligan's Island. Half the people didn't know who they were. It made me feel really old. Okay, so in 2000 and 2008, big, I would say 2000 for e-commerce was a bigger recession. 2008, very sharp recession. One of the things people talked about was optimize the other 98%. So you would take this 2% as an accepted conversion. How do you optimize the other 98%? I think that's something that's still very valid today. It's more expensive to acquire traffic. It's more considered purchase. Starting to pull that 98% apart and figuring out where are they coming from, how can you be better with that traffic? Are you showing them the wrong stuff? Are you giving them the wrong information? Are they having challenges getting through your shopping experience, et cetera? So that would be a very simple way, and make sure that you're framing these customer deep dives as a real customer problem. So I think most organizations, you look at a KPI and you say the KPI is wrong. The KPI is not wrong. KPIs are outputs. What are the inputs that lead you to those outputs? So is it having the right availability of product? That may be giving you a lot of problems because you have supply chain issues. Or you may have just raised prices. That might be contributing to the issue. So making sure you just pull all those inputs apart to make sure you understand what is it that's contributing to the problem with that KPI, frame that as a problem, and then go back and solve it. People are much better if you can be hyper-specific about what you're trying to solve for.
So just to pick at that for a moment, it starts with knowing your shopper. So you gave the example of for shoppers below a certain age, you have to have the assortment that matches an entry-level price point. It's easy to say, just know your customer, but are there programmatic things you've done so that people know how to ask the right question, right? Just start with that understanding of who's my shopper and what are they trying to solve for.
So a big thing that we do, and I know it sounds, is also keep it simple. So we have a customer data platform. We do a lot of propensity scoring inside of it. We have a lot of smart people that work on that, but we make them work in the call center. We make them work in stores. We make them listen. We have a phone booth in our office, so at any given point in time, you can pick up and catch a random customer service call that's taking place at that time. Trying to help people understand what real problems the customer is going through. So it's easy for all of us. If you've traveled to New York and you're coming to this, you're probably not sitting in that household income under $55,000. But if that's your issue, make sure you get out to stores and really talk with people who are going through it. Make sure you're looping customer service phone calls to find out what's really driving some of that pain and see if there's something you can do about it. We've had initiatives like getting return funds back to people's credit card being really meaningful. So we launched an initiative that took that from about 2 weeks down to about 3 days. Just by working through the pain. And I think this is one where if you can identify what the problem is, like we ship them the wrong thing, but we still have their credit card blocked. Like, can we get them money back so that we can get them another product? Like real simple things like that make a big, big, big difference. But you got to frame that for the teams to go work against.
So very tactically, do you have a internal goal for your direct reports or your leadership to listen to customer service calls or something like that?
I think part of that's just, you have to win that with culture. You can't tell. So our founder has a really interesting phrase. She says, we hire nice people and we teach them how to do the job well. We don't hire people who know how to do the job and try to teach them to be nice because that doesn't work. So I think that there was some like groans there. So maybe you know some not nice people, maybe at your office. It's okay. We're nice. You can come over. We were the Forbes #1 ranked mid-sized company to work for in America this year. Yeah, and so. Yeah. Barb's got a place in Seaside. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's like a big piece. So we try to make it part of our culture to like actually engage with our customers and understand empathetically what they're going through. So I don't know. Like you can try mandating it, but I don't know how you mandate. Like maybe we go in the subways later and we try some like social experiment.
Nice. So I think one of the themes you highlighted was this idea of looking at the shopper journey holistically. And certainly one of the variations of that I have a lot of passion around is folks don't look past the buy button in their analytics, right? Everybody spent a lot of time and energy instrumenting their analytics up to the point of somebody hitting buy, but average retailer declines 5 to 15% of good transactions post buy button in the payments and checkout lane. And that doesn't make it into your Google Analytics or your Omniture report. So talk a little bit about how you all, we can get into some of the specifics in a moment, but what are you looking at past the buy button? Are you looking at a fully weighted view of returns? How do you think about conversion from cart to?
So I think we try to take it like every step of the way. So this is like you slow down to go fast. So one of the big ones we look around is how many people are playing with like the shipping methods before they pop out. I'll give this is like the designated signified pitch portion of it. So I looked before we got here. We have a 99.7% acceptance. So I think industry average is around 95%. So if you look at that, 4.7%, that's kind of found money, right? So if fraud is roughly around a percentage point, like what most of the people we're turning away are real fraud. I think Signified has also helped us. We get I want to say close to 80% of our chargeback liability we're able to recover. So these are little things, but they all add up. And when you're in this time, I worked with this guy from Montana, and I've never seen the show Yellowstone. I have a kid, so I don't, like if I get 20 minutes into a movie, that's like a marathon. But he was from Montana. He had this great phrase. He used to always say, everybody runs around the office looking for a silver bullet. What they don't realize is most of it is a bunch of bags of lead. And like that's what this is. You're talking about found money, 4.7% of incremental acceptance is a really big deal if you consider that against industry benchmarks. Looking at your shipping policy, I think going back through payment options, if you look at areas where you're seeing a lot of customer shift, buy now, pay later was all the rage, and now we're seeing more people go back to credit cards so that they can float the debt. These aren't huge moves. None of these are huge moves, but they're all real small pieces. And just making sure who owns order processing, who owns payment processing, who owns just saying our shipping rates where they need to be up or down. Like these are real simple things that you can assign out to the team, and people will put more thought into it than I certainly will on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's really important. I think most people want to do the right thing. You just need to explain to them what the right thing is, and they'll put a lot of effort against it.
Oh, that's great, Darren. Thank you. And we've only got about 2 more minutes, folks. I could ask questions all day, but if you have any, now would be a great time to get those hands up. Otherwise, I will keep going because I didn't know about the Coleman collaboration until this panel. So there you go.
So can I say one thing, since I feel pressure now that we're under 90 seconds. So I was like jokingly doing the hand raise thing, but this is like, as somebody who's been in the community for a long time and been in the industry for a long time, one of the things I found in our office is I tend to talk pretty flippantly about recessions. Because I went through, I came out of school in a recession. I went through 2000, which are like Scott or Veronica or anybody like, yeah.
Veronica's in the back.
Yeah,
Cheers.
like I think one of the things that was a benefit is back in 2000 there was an awful lot of like I told you so and e-commerce is a fad, and you really like had these moments where you're like, oh God, I've like put all my chips in on the wrong profession, and you don't have that as an overhang right now. I think the last couple of years have proven how important e-commerce is, and that those seats at the table are valuable, and that's like a real C-suite job. Like we'll get through it. You'll tighten your belt, and you get there by working really methodically to get rid of inefficiencies. And sometimes it's not glorious work, and sometimes it's not, something you want to hear. But it's just being able to look in the mirror and say that you're coming in every day. You've got your team focused on the right things. You're trying to preserve cash. You're trying to capture the sales you can, get rid of the waste. And like I said, we'll get to the other side and we'll get back to like double-digit growth rates and it'll feel good. But I didn't really understand. If you're like under 35, you've sort of thought that the industry kind of goes up and to the right forever. But trees don't grow to the sky. So like there's a moment where things get trimmed and stuff like that. And the way you get through that is you make a list of things and you knock the first 3 things off that list. You make kind of reassess where you sit on things, and you knock the next 3 things off, and you just grind it out.
You find the bags of lead.
Yeah, you buy. It's not a silver bullet; it's a bunch of bags of lead. So,
awesome.
That was like my public service announcement. That's
It's a good
an elder
PSA.
statement, but yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks. Thanks, everybody.